Good morning. Hello, everybody. Dan Miller, Historical Solutions, LLC. Welcome to episode number 25 on the 250 River with Dr. Dan. Real people, real stories, real event, real life from 250 years ago right now. Talking to you, we're doing top 5. I'm talking to you a couple of days late, so we're going to, if you'll indulge me, going to go back. So this is the week up to April 24th. 1775. Had a lot going on, and that's why we've got the delay. Yes, I've got a fire next to me, and hopefully I won't catch on fire. We are in the wilds of suburbia, so I could be assaulted by a lawnmower or a trash hauler or a terrorist who's upset about last Saturday's garage sale purchase and wants a refund. So anything can happen in this climate, in this environment, but I'm ready to go, ready to defend our right to have this 25th episode. That feels like a milestone, doesn't it? Good Lord, this is hot. I'm bumping microphones with my coffee, which means I got to switch hands. So, today's episode sponsor, 100% fact, 0% fiction. That's a first, and this is why that's a good thing. So today's sponsor is me. The 76 Leadership Series that I've designed and rolled out for the first time last week at Ball State University, the Minnetrista Center in Muncie, Indiana. 20 people participated. It was an extraordinary day of leadership stories, leadership immersion into the real world of 1774 to 1776. That's session 1, Union, the Union session of our 3-part series. So I'm sponsoring today's episode, the 76 Leadership Series program. Please, if you're interested in offering this or having this offered in your area, let me know, and we'll see how that can get accomplished. My 20 people from session 1, they're excited about session 2, which will be coming up later in May, in fact. So let's move on to our top 5. Hang on to the end of the show. We'll be doing the what's the big idea section to wrap it all up, and I think you'll want to hear it. Today's episode and today's top 5 is we're going to start on number 5. Now, a little different here. It's not like it's the 5th least important, going up to the number 1 most important. That's not how I'm thinking of this right now. I'm thinking of 5 as fundamental. 5 is foundational. 5 is the thing upon which we stack 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let's just do number 5 is what number 5 ought to be and was always meant to be, which is the elephant in the room, the white whale in the water, and that is the Lexington and Concord battles of April 19th. Remember, we're in the week up to April 2024. So we've got Paul Revere's ride, which was real, which was the right ride. Remember, he was wrong a week or so prior, but this time he's right. The British are coming. The British are coming. In fact, they go out to Concord, they go over to Lexington, and then they make their way back on the Old Bay Road to their encampments in Boston. It's a running battle, especially on the way back from Concord, Lexington, on the way back to the British encampment. Lots of casualties, lots of fatalities, lots of bloodshed, lots of violence. This isn't an accident. This isn't a one-off. This isn't a momentary impulse. This is thought out, thought through, and followed through in terms of the degree of violence and bloodshed. So this is a big thing that we've got here at number 5. And as I said, I think it's appropriate. It is, in fact, the elephant in the room, the 800-pound gorilla on the sofa, and the white whale in the water. Number 4. Boom. Our number 4 of our top 5 is a dinner. A brother goes to a dinner at his brother's house. John Washington, the youngest brother of George, goes to a dinner at George's house, Mount Vernon. There's, I think, 3 or 4 other people there. George is entertaining them. He likes to entertain. He's good at it. So he hosts a dinner. John's there. They wrap up. Nothing super spectacular, nothing super out of the ordinary. John waves goodbye, leaves George at his home. George writes in his diary, I continued at home that night. I bring it up as number 4 because it's 5 days after Lexington and Concord, and nobody knows there yet what's happened. Word has not traveled to where they are. That's an illustration of the degree of speed that exists for news that's at least coming down from Boston to the Potomac River Valley. Now, part of that speed of it not arriving yet is that both sides of the crisis that has broken out along the Old Bay Road in Boston, both sides want to document. Both sides want to get their reports, their accounts, their I guess we'll call it propaganda. For there's some of you that are going to want to say that, but their version of the information out. So maybe that's caused a little bit of a slowdown, and why it's 5 days on now and nobody's heard anything about what's happened from the dinner party that's breaking up at Mount Vernon in the Potomac River Valley. They'll hear about it very soon, just not yet. But that's number 4. Life is going on, and nobody knows what's happening to the north just yet. Number 3. Another guy in the Potomac River Valley is Richard Henry Lee. In fact, he's a neighbor of Washington's. He writes a letter to a friend, and in the letter he talks about, I wish we had better men and we were in better times. And then he lists off, right after making that remark, he lists off the things that they now need to do. They need to get guns, they need to get ammunition, they need to learn how to use those guns, to train at the Discipline. That's the name of a book, The Discipline, written by Humphrey Bland. It's to learn how to use the guns in an organized, strategic, and coherent way. And above all, and this is why this is number 3, and it's so meaningful. He says we have to stick by, with religious zeal, stick by and stick with the association. That's capital A, association. That's the name, if you've forgotten, or if maybe you never knew, that's the name of the economic boycott, nonviolent movement that has been put into place since late last year. And there is their counterpunch to try to convince and force Parliament to repeal the Coercive Acts is this economic boycott. Nothing imported from Britain, nothing exported to Britain. It worked 10 years ago. And it's got a new name, the Association. And Richard Henry Lee says, for God's sakes, we've got to just wrap our arms around that association for all that we're worth, and hang on to it as our success, as our hope for success and our expectation for success in getting out of this awful moment. Stay with the association. That's number 3. Number 2. Now, up to Boston, up to a guy who considers himself a deserter. And he says, I don't like this feeling. I'm not a deserter, but I'm kind of treated like one, and I feel like one. That's John Hancock, the wealthy, white, very prosperous, very influential, well-connected colonial protest leader in Boston. He's been one of the 2 guys that was supposed to be arrested by that British strike force that went out to Concord and Lexington and came back on the Old Bay Road and had all that bloodshed happen on April 19th. Hancock's one of the targets of that. And he gets away. He's warned by Paul Revere, but he's still kind of on the run a little bit. He's still kind of incognito, trying to make sure he doesn't step in the wrong spot, make the wrong turn, and get arrested by accident or by negligence. And so he says, I feel like a deserter. But he's writing to the president, or to the person who's very influential in the Massachusetts Provincial Congress, Dr. Joseph Warren. And he's saying, by God, tell the Provincial Congress, assault Boston. Straight on, straight in, straight at 'em attacks into Boston. We got to do it now. Will my property get ruined? Probably. Do I care? No. You've got to get this thing organized, and that you've got to strike now. That's John Hancock. He's number 2. And now we come to number 1 of our top 5. In the story that I wrote for this week in Americanism Redux, I talk about this guy is the counter Hancock. He's nowhere near Hancock in terms of wealth or influence or connections or anything else. Nowhere near Hancock in terms of the clear future that he sees ahead of himself. His name's Cato. He's a young black guy, and he's enslaved. He's been enslaved by 2 different families in the Boston area, and one of which is a guy named William Smith, who's now put together a company, a unit, about 70 guys or so, and they're on their way to Boston. They're walking to Boston, outside of Boston, to surround the British Army now. There are hundreds and hundreds of men, boys, women, some girls that are now starting to surround Boston on the outskirts, the hillsides, the meadows, the pastures, looking down at Boston with the redcoats now trapped inside. And every hour that goes by the time we get to April 24th, there's a new count. 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 12,000. The count's just growing as to the numbers of people that are pouring in, bringing guns, food, supplies, equipment, ammunition, whatever, bedrolls, whatever else is needed. Cato has taken on the name of his enslaver. Somebody says, "What's your last name, son?" He says, "It's Smith. I'm Cato Smith, and I'm here to join. I'm here to sign up in Captain Smith's unit." So he does. He joins this unit that's now sitting on a hillside outside of Boston, part of the 12,000 plus group. We'll call them an army, kind of an army that is now surrounding and starting to lay siege to the British that are walled off inside of Boston now after having stumbled back in from that April 19th military strike that failed to get John Hancock and Samuel Adams. So Cato Smith, he's enslaved, he's a volunteer now, and he's a soldier. Was he promised something to do this? Was he promised his freedom if he did this? I don't know. I'd love to know. If anybody can find out, please send word on. All I know is Cato's real, and Cato's on the hillside today, April 24th, 250 years ago. So what's the big idea as we think about leaving today and moving on into our week, and I'll move on into their week on your behalf? What's the big idea? Well, we're union. The union is real. The union of American colonies, and we can call them American now. They're British colonies who are American. This union is real. Now, the symbol of the union, the collective symbol of the union, is the Congress that met and decided and deliberated and then adjourned back in Philadelphia last fall. They're set to come back in for a second go-round. So they've now got a number. They're second. They're the second Congress, the Second Continental Congress. They're going to meet starting May 10th or so, back in Philadelphia. Well, guess what's number 1 through 39 on their agenda item list? And that is April 19th. And what's folding and spilling and rolling and exploding out of that series of running combat at Concord, Lexington, and the Old Bay Road. That's their agenda for the coming meeting. But before that meeting, which is now going to be a couple of weeks away, or less, the sand of the hourglass is falling through quickly. But before that, the Union didn't depend only on it. That's the symbol. That's the entity. But the Union is now everywhere. It's in homes. It's in towns. It's in colonial capitals, if you will, like an Annapolis, Maryland, or a Salem, Massachusetts, since Boston's occupied by, quote, the enemy, close quote, Charleston, South Carolina, and on and on. So the Union is living there. The Union is growing up, starting to get its nourishment, its sustenance there. And then we're going to be moving into the second meeting of this symbolic and collective entity of the Union, the Congress, soon here in May. I'm going to introduce to you a new word, or at least a newly pronounced word, next time around, or maybe the time after that. But I just want to say to you that the Union now has one item on its agenda, and that's fighting. It didn't have that before. It talked about training, did some organization, but it didn't have the reality of fighting, and it does now. And so much is going to change. I'm Dr. Dan Miller. That's been What's the Big Idea for this week, right after the top 5. Again, if you'd like to talk about how the 76 Leadership Series can be brought to your area for your people, let me know, and we'll see how that could potentially occur. Thank you so much for everything. I didn't melt. I got close, and I've survived the wilds of suburbia to live and fight another day. I hope you have a great week, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm going to reach up here and click this off. I'll talk to you real soon.